Have you ever had a thought so bizarre, so random, or maybe even so dark that you immediately thought, wow, I'm glad no one can hear this? We all have. Our minds are our last true bastion of privacy. A secret garden where our strangest ideas and deepest insecurities can roam free without judgment. But what if that suddenly changed? What if, one day, we woke up, and our thoughts were no longer our own? Imagine a world where every single thought, from I wonder if I left the stove on to I really do unlike my boss, new haircut, was broadcast for everyone to hear. This isn't just a sci-fi fantasy. It's a scenario that would fundamentally rewrite the rules of human existence. So, let's dive deep into this mind-bending hypothetical. What would happen if your thoughts were no longer private? The first moments of this new reality would be pure, unadulterated chaos. Imagine walking down the street. It's no longer just the sounds of traffic and chatter. It's a cacophony of mental noise. You'd hear your neighbor internally screaming because they're late for work, the person next to you on the bus secretly judging your music choice, and a dozen people mentally complaining about the weather. The sheer sensory overload would be paralyzing. Public spaces would become unbearable. People would likely retreat into their homes, seeking solitude not for peace and quiet, but to escape the deafening roar of collective consciousness. Simple interactions would become minefields. A first date? Forget about it. Do I have something in my teeth? Are they bored? I wish they would stop talking. Every insecurity, every fleeting judgment, laid bare. It would be social Armageddon. After the initial shock, society would be forced to adapt or crumble. The first casualty would be dishonesty. White lies, polite fibs, and even major deceptions would become impossible. You couldn't pretend to like a gift. You couldn't fake enthusiasm in a meeting. This might sound like a good thing, a world of radical honesty. But think about the social glue that these small, harmless lies provide. They smooth over awkwardness, spare feelings, and maintain harmony. Without them, relationships would be tested to their absolute limits. Friendships would end over unspoken resentments. Marriages would crumble under the weight of silent frustrations and hidden desires. Every interaction would be brutally, painfully honest. The world would be a much more truthful place, but it might also be a much lonelier one. Can our relationships, built on a delicate balance of spoken truths and unspoken courtesies, survive total transparency? The professional world would be turned on its head. Job interviews would be interesting. They seem qualified, but their mind is just replaying cat videos. They think my question is stupid. Negotiations would be impossible. Imagine trying to get a raise when your boss can hear you thinking, I'll take whatever they offer. I'm desperate. The entire concept of a poker face would be extinct. Industries built on information asymmetry, like sales, law, and finance, would collapse overnight. How can a lawyer defend a client when they, and the entire jury, can hear the client thinking, I totally did it? Corporate hierarchies would dissolve. No one could hide their ambition, their incompetence, or their genuine disdain for company policy. Perhaps this would lead to a true meritocracy, where only the most genuinely passionate and skilled people rise. Or it could lead to a workforce paralyzed by fear, where no one dares to think a creative but risky thought for fear of being shot down before they even speak. And what about our inner selves? The constant exposure would be mentally and emotionally exhausting. We all need a private space to process our emotions, to work through our fears, and to fantasize. Without that privacy, our mental health would suffer immensely. We'd become hyper-aware of our own thoughts, constantly trying to police them. This is a recipe for anxiety on a global scale. The pressure to think correctly would be immense. Negative thoughts, which are a normal part of the human experience, would become a source of public shame. Imagine being shamed not for what you did, but for a fleeting, angry thought you had about someone who cut you in line. This could lead to a new form of social control, and thought police enforced not by a government, but by society itself. We would lose the freedom to be imperfect, to be messy, to be human. However, it's not all doom and gloom. There could be some incredible silver linings. With no secrets, misunderstandings would become a thing of the past. Imagine being able to perfectly understand a loved one's needs without them having to say a word. Empathy would skyrocket. We would be forced to confront the inner worlds of others, to see their struggles, their joys, their quiet anxieties. We might realize that the person we envy is actually deeply insecure, or that the person who seems gruff and distant is battling immense personal pain. This shared consciousness could foster a profound sense of unity and connection. Crime might plummet. How can you plan a crime when your intentions are broadcast to everyone around you, including law enforcement? Deception and manipulation on a grand scale, from corrupt politicians to scam artists, would be eradicated. We could achieve a level of collective understanding and cooperation that we can only dream of today. Mental health could also, paradoxically, improve in some ways. The stigma would vanish when everyone can hear the anxious thoughts of their neighbors, friends, and colleagues. They'd realize they're not alone in their struggles. It would normalize the full spectrum of human thought and emotion, removing the shame that so often accompanies mental health challenges. We could build a society based on unparalleled empathy and support. So, how would we cope? Humans are incredibly adaptable. We would likely develop new social norms. Perhaps a form of mental etiquette would emerge. It might become rude to listen in too intently on someone's thoughts. People might train themselves to have a public-facing mind, a stream of neutral, pleasant thoughts, while keeping their deeper thoughts locked away through intense mental discipline, a kind of internal meditation. Technology might even offer a solution. Maybe we'd invent mental blockers or privacy shields that allow us to control who can access our thoughts and when. This, of course, would create a new divide. The thought haves and the thought have-nots. Those who can afford mental privacy and those who cannot. This new world presents a fascinating paradox. It could lead to a utopia of honesty and empathy, or a dystopia of anxiety and social collapse. It would strip away the masks we all wear, forcing us to confront the raw, unfiltered reality of ourselves and everyone around us. Ultimately, the question of whether a world without private thoughts is better or worse is complex. We would lose our individuality, our final sanctuary of self. But we might gain a level of connection and understanding that could solve many of the world's biggest problems. It forces us to ask, what is more important, the freedom of individual privacy or the potential for a collective harmony? It's a trade-off with staggering implications. This thought experiment really makes you appreciate the silent, invisible walls of your own mind. They allow you the space to be you in all your weird, wonderful, and sometimes worrying glory. So the next time you have a thought you're glad no one else can hear, take a moment to be grateful for the beautiful, chaotic privacy of your own mind. It's the last truly personal space we have. What do you think? Would this radical transparency be a dream or a nightmare? Let me know your thoughts, the ones you're willing to share, down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the mind, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next exploration. See you next time.